we could go back to the beginning of our story, we will now be moving on to talking about Blessing Okagbare, who recently has been served with a 10-year ban on competing in athletics. Those 10 years were comprised of 5 years for allegedly returning a positive sample for a banned substance, and then another 5 years for not cooperating with authorities and their investigations. Now, Blessing Okagbare, the 33-year-old, who's also, of course, a sprinter, was expelled from the Tokyo Olympics last year before the women's 100-meter semi-finals after testing positive for a human growth hormone at an out-of-competition test in Slovakia on July 19th, 2021, of course, before the Olympics. Now, the AIU had revealed that Okagbare tested positive for a blood booster called EPO in Nigeria in June, in addition to another failed test for a human growth hormone over in Slovakia in July. So, just to make it clear, tested positive for something in Nigeria in June and then again in Slovakia in July, which was announced during the Olympics. Now, Okagbare was also charged with failing to cooperate with the investigation after she disobeyed an order to produce documents, records, and electronic storage devices in relation to other charges. Okagbare, a former Commonwealth Games gold medalist, won her first round heat of the women's 100 meters in Tokyo before being forced to withdraw when her test results were announced. Okagbare had earlier denied all charges. Well, to help us properly situate how exactly this unfortunate development can impact the growth and development of Nigerian athletics and sports in general, we're now being joined by Dare Esson, who is a veteran sports journalist with a special interest in athletics. He's covered the Olympics, the FIFA World Cup, and 8 editions of the World Athletics Championship. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely. Well, it is, of course, quite an interesting development there, isn't it? First and foremost, I wanted to ask your opinion. Are you surprised at the severity of the punishment against Blessing Okagbare? I'm asking you because you'll be aware that Sha'Carri Richardson, for example, a US sprinter, tested positive for cannabis right after she won the Olympic trials over in the United States and was unable to perform in the Olympics because of the 30-day ban she was given. And then just recently, a Russian figure skater also tested positive, albeit her being very, very young. She was allowed to continue competing in the figure skating final. She did, of course, place 4th. But going back to the issue at hand, which is Blessing Okagbare, 10 years, if this continues to be the situation, it does spell retirement for what has been a successful athletics career for her. Are you surprised by the severity of these punishments?
I think I am, especially with the 5 years given for not cooperating with the AIU investigation into her case. I think that's the only surprise that I have, because normally the first part of that sentence should have been 4 years. And because I think it was multiple breaches of the World Anti-Doping rules. Multiple, that's the word. I think that was why she was now slammed 5 years. So a year was added. The standard practice was to give her 4 years for that. Then the 5 years for not cooperating, I think, is an overkill. It's an overkill.
Well, how would you say this development impacts on the already plunging fortunes of Nigerian sports? And what would you attribute this severity of her punishment to? Maybe racism, as a lot of Nigerians have called it?
No, I don't think so. She won't be the first Nigeria to get that lengthy ban. I think there's one Adeloye in 2015 that was banned for 8 years, a relative unknown. It has nothing to do with racism. It has to do with the kind of infractions. I mean, the level of infraction. You know, our own is, first of all, it's not even the ordinary anabolic steroid. It's an human growth hormone, an EPO. Those are very sophisticated level of substances. So I'm not really surprised. Like I said, the standard practice is to give a 4 year ban. But because it's a multiple breaches, so they added 1 year. So there's nothing like racism in that, because she could have gotten 4 years anyway. So what is the difference between 4 years and 5 years? The only one that I'm surprised about is the other aspect of not cooperating with the investigation. And I understand why they've given her 5 years, because that aspect is not to ascertain whether she was guilty or not. She has already been found guilty. It is to find would-be collaborators. And that is what is most after, so that they can get other people who did this. Like it happened in the Bako case in the 1990s, when Marion Jones was eventually caught. So a lot of people were caught in that web then, and that is what Alexis was after. But unfortunately, Blessed didn't cooperate. And if you look at what is happening in the Eric Lira case, there is an athlete too that was mentioned. So those are the kind of things what Alexis was looking for, that there must be somebody who has also been taking it or who has been supplying you the drugs. So they want the whole package so that they can rid the sport of all these illegal substances.
Well, I wanted to say before you do that, you don't think that the action is quite severe. I'll read that. I'll read this out to you. The tribunal also ordered that the athletes' results from and including 20th of June are disqualified, including forfeiture of any medals, titles, ranking points, and size and appearance money. I mean, I think it's quite severe, if you would ask me.
It is not. That is the practice. The day you were caught, if it is found, for example, that she's been using that drug since, let me put it this way, January, that means all the times that she has run will be disqualified. It's standard practice. And one of the casualties is actually our qualification for the World Championship, the 4x1 Women World Championship in Oregon. Because she was part of that team, the thing was achieved in Lagos, I think on June 19. The first one was June 17, then the relay was on June 19. So that time is cancelled. So that means Nigeria is going to lose that sport. So we now have to qualify all over again for the World Championship that is fought by 100 meters women for championship. I think recently, was it 2 days ago? It happened to the British team. You know, they went to CAS. One of them that's one of the relatives, was found to have spiked a system with prohibited substances. They withdrawn the medal, the bronze medal won at the Olympics. That is the standard practice. It happened to Nigeria. We benefited from it. The gold that we won in the 4x4 in Sydney, it was because an American tested positive. So we upgraded from silver to gold. So it is not severe. It is the standard practice. It is not.
All right, Dari, I mean, thanks for this explanation, but I'm afraid we will have to go on a quick break now. And when we return, I will still continue on the conversation on this severity and, you know, if you like, propriety of what has happened to Blessing Okagbare. Stay with us.
Knowledge is power. Information is currency. Trust us to tell you what you need to hear. Welcome to the program. You're with Arise News in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Breaking news, exclusive interviews, unrivaled analysis. It's you, the audience, who drives our agenda. We tell the stories that inform you, the stories that are important to you, and the stories that are about you. We are not every news channel. We are Arise News. This is no ordinary talk show. It's no holds barred. No question off limits. It's in-depth, far-reaching, going beyond the headlines and getting to grips with the big issues. I'm Charles Anyegolu. I'm the interviewer, and this is the Arise Interview.
Morning to you here on Arise News. And we're still being joined by Dari Eson, who's a veteran sports journalist, sharing perspectives with us on the Blessing Okagbare issue. So, Dari, thanks for staying with us.
Yeah.
All right. I worry about some of these things, and I'll just like you to put us through how easy it is. I know that Blessing's case is almost incontrovertible. You can't be testing positive all the time and to some serious issues. But then, how does it work? How easy is it for athletes generally to test positive? Because these are people who, use vitamins, who use medications, basically for healthy living. And at what point do you know which is banned, which can test, badly on your system, etc.? I mean, is this a plus for sports in general and, athletes, specifically? Because I worry every time that, it's banned substance aided performance, etc. Look at Blessing, for example. Maybe she's been taking all these things, but for what reason? How many medals, how many gold has she brought to Nigeria? So how does it work? Explain to us this all doping, anti-doping brouhaha.
I think it's very, 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 very easy. There's a rule in doping that when you are 18 and above, whatever is found in your system, you'll be responsible for it. And there are a list of prohibited substances. So an athlete cannot claim ignorance of not knowing. There are those that have been added just about a year ago. This thing keeps improving. There are drugs they were using like 2 years before that were not on the prohibited list, that has not been brought into the prohibited list. So for athletes of our standing, because we also have to look at our pedigree, our standing. That cannot be an excuse. That's number one. Then number two, this kind of excuse can be for when you take anabolic steroid and all the like. But when it has to come to human growth hormone, an EPO, this is a blood testing drug. It has to do with the blood. You pass it through the blood. When it comes to that, it is clear that you are taking EPO and you are taking THG. So there are two different levels. Those who complain, they actually complain about maybe contaminated food, contaminated that. That is for anabolic steroids and the like. But when it comes to human growth hormone, there is no excuse. There's no excuse. And for somebody of her standing, I think she should have known. And unfortunately, you mentioned something about the evidence being incontrovertible. I think what has made it look like that happens to be the Eric Lira case, that Rochekov case in the US. When you saw the exchanges between Blessing and Eric Lira, it was like, wow, can this be Blessing? Because a lot of people are surprised. Just like what happened to Marion Jones in the 1990s and early 2000s.
Oh, don't say Marion. That breaks my heart. Do you know, sorry to interrupt you there, Mr. Eson, but Marion Jones was the sprinter of my childhood. I loved Marion Jones. She could be anybody. So when it came out that she was doping or that she'd even served the prison sentence, but that was for a separate thing. As a child, that broke my heart.
If I have to confess, I shed some tears when she was found positive.
So did I. I remember watching that press conference. I cried at that one too. And I think just to buttress...
She was such a likable athlete with an infectious mind, especially if you've been with her on the circuit. But we're not talking about Marion Jones. I'm only using her as an example anyway. So that is... when that happens as an athlete, you have to know. There's no hiding place. And like I said, the standard practice is 4 years. There has been argument about the length of ban. I'm not talking about Blessing per se now. Because I remember in the 1990s, early 1990s, it used to be a 4-year ban straight. Because there was this argument about your job, employment, and the rest, that how can you ban somebody for 4 years? There's going to be loss of income for 4 years. So it was reduced to 2. Recently, it was moved up to 4, especially for people who use human growth hormone, because that's like the height of it. That's like the height of it. And what a lot of people now do, because there are certain drugs that you use within a few hours. If the test has come, they won't find anything. So that somebody must have snitched on Blessing. Someone must have snitched on Blessing.
You know, she had put out a statement that she was going to appeal the decision. In your experience, what do you think her chances are if she were to appeal the decision?
It's going to be tough. I think the best she can get is a reduction. If you look at past cases, what they've always gotten from the Court of Appeal for Sport has always been reduction in their sentence. And for Blessing, even a 2-year ban for me, I think will have been the end of her career. She's 33 now, and I don't think it's every time you can have a Merinote competing into her 40s. I don't think Blessing can compete into her 40s, so I don't think that is possible. So even a 2-year ban, because the psychological effect of having your career that is at the twilight of she's at the twilight of her career, having that cut short in a very sad way will have that psychological problem for her. So
I'm glad you mentioned, sorry to interrupt you, I'm glad you mentioned psychological issues, because I can imagine it could be a lot of pressure on any athlete, because, you know, in recent times, it seems as though, even though Nigeria has a very strong Olympic track and field history, recently we haven't had as much representation. So it could be a level of pressure on athletes like Blessing Okagbare to carry national hope and pride, especially when it comes to track and field sprinting events. And as I said, Nigeria does have a strong history when it comes to track and field events, not only at the Olympics, but definitely at those types of meets. So when you've got the likes of Chioma Ajunwa, Deji Aliu, Fali Ogunkoya, back in the 90s, there was a huge array of Nigerian sprinters who were doing well. And when you fast forward to modern times, that doesn't seem to be the issue. So what do you think Nigerian athletics was getting right then that it's not getting right now?
I think we'll get it right now, because the times we were talking about, a lot of Nigerian athletes were on scholarship in the US, because unfortunately we don't have the right equipment, we don't have the right mentality for training here. So most of them were on scholarship, the Falela Togunkoya, the Nosete Gunike, the Ajayi Agbebakus, all of them that have won medals for Nigeria, the Yusuf Alis, the Henry Amikes, the Mary Onyalis, except for a few, Chioma Ajunwa, Sunday Bada, the Gialiu. Those are the ones that didn't go to school in America. But the large chunk of them went to school in America, and we saw the effect. And that is what is actually playing back now. Because if you look at what is happening now in the Nigerian athletic circuit, you see a lot of very young and very talented athletes coming up. Favor of Philly, for example, she has gone under 23 seconds in the 200 meters indoor. No Nigerian has ever done that. Not even the great Mary Onyali has done that. Not even Blessing Okagbare in the 200 meters has done that. To run is 23 in the 200 meters indoor. You have, what's her name? Again in Texas Tech. I've forgotten the name. She's been doing very well in the triple jump. And she actually qualified for
Is that Essay Brume?
I'm trying to remember. I'll get the name. She's been doing fantastically well in the triple jump. And that was the first time in the women's triple jump that will be qualified for the Olympics. Then we have the girl in the hammer. No Nigerian, not even a Nigerian, non-African has thrown 70 and above in the hammer. So we have a Nigerian girl, although she's based in the US. So I think the good times are gradually coming back, just like it was in those days. When, for example, in 1998, we had Nigerians as number 1 and 2 in the world. Farila Togunkoya and Charity Okpara. We've never had that again. In 1998, that same 1998, we had Gloria Loze. I think she dominated the circuit like she was the only one in the circuit. I think she lost only one race. So we've been having people like that. Sheon Ogunkoya, Francis Obikwelu before he moved to Portugal. So a lot of them. So I think we are getting that back. And that is the cheering news for me.
All right, Dari. Yeah, all right, Dari. Well, I mean, this obviously is a career-ending, ban, definitely. But in one sentence or two, because we have run out of time, what would be the lesson to the Nigerian Athletics Federation in all this?
I don't see any lesson in this, because first of all, it's an individual affair. And this is not the first time an athlete will test positive, either here in Nigeria or elsewhere. This is not the first time. We've had athletes that have been banned for life. You mentioned Ajunwa just now. TV and Chukwemeka has also been banned for life. I mentioned Adeloye that was banned for 8 years. Because it's an individual thing. It is, the federation has no issue, has no hand in what happens to you. So she will carry her cross and she will go. And others will Maybe others will also learn from that. Others will learn from that, definitely. But my question is, if over the years, Mario Jones was caught, nobody learned from that. Ben Johnson was caught, nobody learned from that. I don't think anybody can learn from blessing because it's an individual thing. You are responsible for whatever is found in your system, not the federation, not the country, not maybe your coach. It depends. If you are able to prove, or maybe your coach says, I'm the one that gave her the drug. But as an athlete, you should be sure of what you are taking. The moment you are 18, it is your responsibility. So I don't think it will have any effect. I don't think it has had any effect all over the world. So I'm not just talking about Nigeria. Lymphocrisis was banned sometimes in the 1990s. We had another Briton testing positive at the Olympics. So they don't really learn because they know that it is when you are caught that you are caught. If you are not caught, then you continue to enjoy.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so
very much
Darius.
for joining us.
Thank you.